So you guys might have seen my last video where I talked about some of the crazy new New Jersey laws. Well, I've got an even more insane one for you coming up here later in this video. But the first thing I want to talk to you guys about is a subscription fee to ride your bicycle. It's basically a yearly registration fee that New Hampshire has proposed that every single bike owner will have to pay every single year. That is, if you want to ride it on public streets, public trails, and even public access off-road trails. So if you're like me and you're tired of everything being a subscription, don't fool yourself. This registration fee is essentially a subscription to ride something that you already own. And personally, I am so tired of everything going to a subscription plan, and you can't tell me that this isn't some sort of forced subscription plan for the consumer. So you might think I'm perfectly safe because I have a regular bike. I don't ride one of those e-bikes. Well, you would be wrong, because in New Hampshire, the bill that's being proposed, $50 a year is what you're going to have to pay whether you have a regular bike or whether you have an e-bike. And this is supposedly so all this money can go back to help develop bike lanes and bike infrastructure. And you know what? I'm all for developing bike infrastructure. And all that is fine and dandy, but the fact of the matter is, if you already have a bike, why are you going to have to pay to have this thing registered? Just say you bought a bike 5-10 years ago that now is worth like $100. So you're telling me every year you've got to go to the DMV and re-register your bike to have a $50 tag put on it, so you don't get tagged with a $100 ticket. I don't know if states are just desperate for money or what they're doing, but it seems like in the past, we were looking at things that helped improve bike infrastructure and help improve bike safety, like the 3-foot rule that was implemented in a few states where a vehicle can't pass you closer than 3 feet. Now, we're just looking at these things as if we can charge anybody and everything to make a few extra bucks. And my thought is that there's somebody in the back room in the government just thinking, well, how many bikes were actually sold in the last year? How many bikes are actually out there? How many bikes are actually being ridden? And if we charge them all $50 a year, well, we would make millions of dollars. I just don't get it, guys. I don't get it. You're trying to punish the people who are trying to do recreational things to potentially alleviate traffic congestion and just maybe even just get out and ride and enjoy their ride. So right now, if this law passes, from what I understand, it's going to be, I guess, voted on or maybe moved forward sometime around January 27th of 2026. If it passes, that means that if you're out on a ride with your grandma and you're just cruising around a neighborhood, you could technically get pulled over and charged $100 per person that doesn't have a registration tag stuck to the frame of their bike and hasn't paid that $50 per year. I don't know. This just seems absolutely crazy and overstepping. There's a few states that charge a fee up front or a one-time registration, and I don't know what's better. Oregon, I believe, charges a one-time fee at checkout of, I believe, $15 per bike, as if it's just a regular tax. And that goes to the same thing where they're trying to use it for bike infrastructure. And then there's Hawaii, who charges $15 for regular bikes permanently one time, and $30 for e-bikes one time. I don't know if a tax up front or a registration is better. All I know is that having to do a registration every single year for the same bike is crazy. Not only is it crazy for the fact that you've already bought the bike, you pay it once. Why do you need to keep paying this over and over and over? But also, to me, this is a barrier to entry for anybody who is in low income situation. Maybe you don't have $50 and maybe you're borrowing a bike, or you got a really inexpensive bike to ride to your job because you can't afford a car. Now you've got to pay this additional fee even on a regular bicycle. So my hope is like New York, they had this kind of come up not too long ago from what I understand, and it got shot down. So basically that didn't happen in New York. And I believe one other state, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but this type of bill has been turned down several times. But right now, with all this e-bike craze that's going on, I'm a little bit worried that a lot of this stuff is just going to get passed through really quickly without people looking at it. So what do you think of this $50 per year registration fee, or as I like to call it, a subscription fee to ride your bike courtesy of your US government? Now, the last thing I want to address is an additional part of the New Jersey law that I discussed in a prior video. We had talked about registration and insurance and all that stuff. Well, you have a 6-month window to actually get all that stuff taken care of. And I think that's because they have to actually implement the infrastructure for all of that. But the craziest one that's implemented as of right now, and it's affecting all of your major online bike retailers, is the fact that they're not allowing any online purchases shipping an e-bike to New Jersey for an entire year. Now, they only put a year window on this, and I don't really understand why. And they didn't really give any companies any specific details of what they could and couldn't ship to New Jersey. So you've got brands like Ride One Up, Electric, and Velotrex, all these brands that have these bikes that are potentially class 1, class 2, or a class 3 bike, and they're not sure if they can ship any of them to New Jersey. So if you live in New Jersey, there's a good chance that if you go to any of these manufacturers, you probably can't even order them. They will probably tell you that it's not going to be possible to ship to your address at this time until they work out all of the details of what is going on with this bill. I found it odd that this is one that actually was implemented immediately. And the reason that they say that they wanted to implement this immediately is because now these are not classified as class 1, 2, or 3. They're classified as motorized vehicles. Therefore, they need to be inspected properly to make sure that they meet all of the requirements that New Jersey has now. So they're expecting you to go to a bike shop, order your stuff through a bike shop, which I think that's great. But ripping out an option from a consumer, to me, that's not right, and that's hurting the online sales of businesses that have built their brand up through online sales that can no longer ship to New Jersey. And I can only imagine there's probably a lot of bikes being shipped to New Jersey because it's got such a big population. So if you live in New Jersey and you've tried to order a bike online starting at the beginning of the year, have you had any trouble? Was the bike actually able to be shipped to you? What do you guys think of this extra law that was put into place through that New Jersey law that was passed? I think it's really silly. I think that if you're going to give the option for a bike shop to sell a bike, then you should be able to allow an online sale. The fact that they are stripping away your rights to be able to order a bicycle is pretty crazy in my opinion. All right, guys, short video today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Tomorrow, I'm going to be putting out a bike review, so stay tuned and let me know what you think of all of these crazy laws. And have you heard of any other laws on any other state that you're like, this is nuts? I can't believe they're actually doing this. All right, guys, get out there and ride your e-bike.